Welcome back to Better Automated Acceptance Testing with Serenity Screenplay. I'm John Ferguson Smart, and today we'll be continuing our exploration of the screenplay pattern and learning how you can use it for a very different type of web testing. What we'll be looking at today is essentially how to write web tests with Serenity Screenplay. We'll be looking at the browser web ability, which you saw briefly in one of the previous episodes, but that we'll now look at in much more detail. We'll look at the WebDriver interaction objects that come bundled with Screenplay and that give you some shortcuts to writing clean, readable tests that interact with the web page without having to do a lot of low-level WebDriver coding. We'll also be looking at WebDriver questions, the other side of the coin, which let you query a web page and ask questions about the state of the web page, again in a very readable way. And finally, we'll be looking at a live example of code, seeing how it all fits together. Serenity helps us write web tests more effectively in a number of ways. And one of the most fundamental is that Serenity handles the WebDriver lifecycle for you. Serenity will start up a web browser when you need it and shut it down at the end of the test. This lifecycle management also allows us to run tests with multiple browsers open at the same time, so we can have several actors associated with using different browsers simultaneously, so they can talk to each other or communicate with each other through those different browsers, which can make for some quite interesting tests. Serenity Screenplay also gives us a collection of interaction and question classes, which can make composing and writing our tests simpler and faster. And finally, as you've seen in the previous lessons, Serenity produces very detailed reports about not only whether a test passes or fails, but what it is doing. In web testing, Serenity also gives you the opportunity to automatically record screenshots at different points during the test. I'm now in the Screenplay exercises repo from the Serenity Dojo GitHub organization, and I've checked out the Screenplay WebDriver Part 1 Start branch. What I want to do here is write a simple little test that will exercise a train booking application similar to the one that we've seen in the WebDriver courses. The train booking application we're going to use is here. It's the Southwest Trains UK application. What we want to do is buy some tickets going from a destination. I'm going to start with London Paddington, for example. And I want to go to Oxford. And when I press buy tickets, I'm going to get a list of train times. That's what we're going to test in this particular episode. Now we're back in the code. And the first thing I want to do is add Serenity Screenplay WebDriver Edition to our dependencies. So I've already got Serenity Screenplay. I want to add Serenity Screenplay WebDriver. And we're going to take the latest version at the time of writing, which is 1.1.38. It will most likely be different when you are viewing this tutorial. So now we have our dependency added, we can go back to our code. First thing we want to do as a screenplay test is that we need an actor. So I'm going to create an actor. I'm going to call the actor Tracy for Tracy the Train Traveller. And I'm going to create some code to set up the actor before we do some tests. First of all, I'm going to create Tracy as an actor. And the next thing I need to do is to say that Tracy is an actor who can browse the web. So I need to say Tracy can browse the web with a browser. And now we need to define a browser. And we do this. This is something that comes standard with any Serenity test. We can define WebDriver instances like this. We simply say WebDriver browser and we say @ managed, which means that Serenity will take care of the life cycle. We can do @manage. If we wanted to, we could say something like driver equals Chrome to override the default driver here. We could also define a variable called unique session. If we set this variable to true, only one browser will be opened for all of the tests in this scenario. So that can optimize in this test case. So that can optimize the speed a little bit as long as your tests can cope with running in the same browser and they don't have any dependencies. So now look what we've got. We have an actor named Tracy who can browse the web. Let's make Tracy do something. In the test, what we saw earlier on was basically Tracy goes to the book a ticket, and then Tracy views the tickets from London Padding to Oxford, and then Tracy should departure and destination stations are the ones we expect. So that is, in a nutshell, what we're trying to test. Let's see if we can make that happen. The first thing we might do in this test is implement that she actually goes to the buy a ticket. And this is a precondition, so we can basically, we could say this starts with a given. We can say something like Tracy has, now here we have to pick the wording. We can say something like has chosen to. That might chosen to, and what has she chosen to do? She's chosen to book a ticket. So that we're expressing her intent here. And behind her intent, we have the actual opening the browser and clicking on the menu. Let's create the chosen to. I'm going to create it in a directory called UI because it is a UI interaction. Now, chosen to is a business task, so it will implement task. Remember that tasks are for our higher level business tasks. We compose all business tasks, whereas actions or interactions, or using a more precise terminology, how the system interacts with the web application directly, with the pages, with a REST service or so forth. That's the more low-level interactions with the system, whereas tasks are the intent of what we're trying to do. So what we see here is that the chosen to, like any other task, needs to perform. And that's the heart of the method. But if we go back now, what we need to create this is book a ticket. So now I'm going to generate a method. And here we have a method. Now, book a ticket means simply that the actor will go to a particular menu. If we want to make this flexible, we can make the menu configurable. We'll do that a little bit later on. For now, we're just going to return an instrumented version of the chosen to class. And we're actually going to do something a little bit very simple. Since we've only got one place to go, we're just going to navigate there directly. So we can say actor, which is the actor here. By convention, we call that actor. Attempts to, and then we have, here's an example of our first bundled Serenity UI element. So now we need to implement the perform as, so it's perform as an actor. And what we can really say is once that Tracy has chosen to book a ticket, she has to navigate her way to the right screen. So we could express this as our own custom UI interaction. Actor attempts to, so Tracy is attempting to, and she's attempting to navigate to, and here navigate is going to be our menu component, which we're going to use later on for other things. So we might be able to go to buy tickets. We could also buy season tickets or view timetables or so forth. Now we don't want to overstretch ourselves, but what we will do is say navigate to, and we'll call it the main menu buy tickets, which means we need a main menu class. We'll put that in the model, and it's going to be an enum. I'm calling it an enum because all I really want to do is encapsulate these menu options in a readable way so that we can navigate to them at the start of the tests. So what I really want here is we have our main menu enum, and it has, for the moment, a signal value of buy tickets. Now the navigate to is an interaction class. Interaction classes, as I said, are different from task classes, not by any particular methods that they support or so forth, but by the intent. The intent of an interaction class is that it interacts with the system. But the implementation is the same. We still need to do a perform as for a particular actor. And if we go back to where we were, we can navigate to we have navigate to, we need to implement the to method. And the to method will return a new instance of the navigate interaction, but configured with the main menu option. So I'm going to create a constructor with this field, and I'm going to create a field of the navigate object, which will need to be instantiated in a constructor. And now I can do something like this. Instrumented instance of navigate class with properties of main menu option. So this will call the constructor of the navigate class, which is up here, and set the main menu option. So that when we get to the perform as, we can decide what we need to do. And the perform as is where we see for the first time a bundled Serenity UI interaction, because we can go open browser on, and we can do a number of things. We can open the browser on a particular page, or we can open the browser on and pass it in a page. It depends on how we're feeling, really. We can do it either way. If we say open browser on the buy tickets page, where does this buy tickets page come from? Well, the answer is simple. If we instantiate a class, a buy tickets page variable, Serenity will instantiate it for us automatically when it creates the navigate task. And we can use this buy tickets page as a way of isolating the URL that we need to go to. So I'm going to create it in the UI section, and I'm going to give it a default URL, which will come from this page. So buy tickets will take us here. Now, In one of the future episodes, we might actually take you through the menu to do this, but for the purposes of this episode, all we need to do is say that the default URL for this page is this URL, and now we have declared a page object. We need to make it extend page object. And this is our page object that Serenity will instantiate for us here when we say navigate to a particular place. It will go to this browser. Now you see there's a slight flaw in the system. It will always go to the buy tickets page. We'll remedy that later on. We won't worry about it for now. It will do fine for the test we're working on at the moment. Let's go back and see if this actually runs. So if I run this, we can see that it passes. Next, we're going to get Tracy to view the tickets from London to Paddington. So we saw that this involved her typing in London and Paddington and Oxford and then clicking on buy tickets. Let's see what this would involve here. We could do something like Tracy attempts to, because Tracy's always actors always perform the attempts to, and view the available tickets from London, Paddington to Oxford. This is a nice reasonable representation of what we're trying to do, but of course we're going to need to create the task that does this, view the available tickets. And this will be not an interaction because it doesn't talk directly to the page, it's a business task. So we're going to call it business a task, and we're going to implement the methods that go with that task, notably perform as. But view the available tickets is created using a builder function. So we can create a view the available tickets builder from. So we're just going to create a simple builder that records the from and the to, and then creates the actual task. So here we have from, and we're going to need to. So these builders become quite routine after a while. We're going to need to instrument the builder though. Instrumented instance of view the available tickets. Now it's always important to remember to use the instrumented versions of the tasks, because this is how Serenity knows how to do its reporting, inject any objects or page objects or dependencies or other components that you might need to inject. So it's always important to do this instrumented instance of. So we say instrumented instance of the name of the builder class with properties, and we can pass in the properties that the builder needs. So the properties that the builder needs are string from, let's make it private final, let's make it clean. Private final string to, and we're going to need a constructor to build them. And that should do it. We have a builder which can now, one thing that we haven't done, we haven't made the builder, always make your builders public, otherwise you can't use them from outside. So Tracy attempts to view the available tickets from London to Oxford. And now down to the meat of it. We've set up our task, and now we need to actually make the task do something. What we saw earlier on is that to see the timetables, we need to enter a value and then enter another value here, and then click on the buy tickets field. So the first thing we're going to do is have a look at this input. So this particular input is called depart from, which is a fairly clean name. we can use that. And while we're at it, we might look at this one. It's called going to. So depart from, going to. Remember those so that we can define exactly what we're going to be talking to. So here what we can do is something like actor attempts to, remember it's always the actor attempting to no matter what the value is. And now here we're going to introduce some pre-bundled, some packaged components that Serenity gives us. The first one is enter. In the next episode we'll be going through all of these to explain how they all work, but I want to show you how they work in practice first. So we say enter the value, and what do we want to enter the value? We want to enter the value from. Now where do we put it? We say into. Now this is the ticket type form. I just made up that name, but we use names to identify different parts of the screen, and we're going to call this from. And then I'm going to say then hit keys tab. Now the reason I'm going to do that is that when I look at this, in my experience, we're going to need to help it. If we say from Oxford, we're going to need to help it make sure we've actually picked the right one. If say from Oxford to London Bridge, we'll do a tab, and now we can buy the tickets, and that works. The reason the tab is important is that when we do something like Oxford, when we've just typed it directly in without doing a tab, without changing the focus, we still have this drop down, and the actual value of the field may not have been assigned by whatever funky JavaScript components are in use there. So it is always better to make sure you either do a tab, or maybe you can do a down key and then a tab. Make sure that you've actually set the value. So we're going to do then hit tab. The then hit is a convenient little extra method that goes on top of the enter that allows you to chain keystrokes on top of the values. Now before we hit anything else, let's create this class ticket type form, which is in fact simply a collection of locators that say where things are. The ticket type form contains all of the information we need to locate different fields or elements on that part of the page, and we do that using Serenity target object, the Serenity target class. We say something like public static target, and the target was from, and then we say target the departure station. Now this text is what appears on the screen. And we're going to say located by, so we can either say located by ID depart from, or I'll show you another notation in the next one, which will be the to field. So we go target the destination station. Obviously I'm doing it on multiple lines just to make it more readable. I can say located by hash going to, which is the same thing as the previous one, just a little bit more concise potential. Which is the same thing as the previous one, except a little bit more concise. The last one we need, and we could wait until we see where we use it, but I'll do it now for convenience, is the buy tickets. Here we say target the buy tickets button, and that is, and we'll locate the buy tickets by a CSS selector, the .planner submit to locator to find the planner submit, the button with the planner submit class. Now let's continue off where we left off. We need to be able to enter the value 2 into As you can see the sort of speed you get when you start to build up some components. We're using existing code quite a bit here so that we don't have to do anything particularly new each time. We don't have to rewrite all the WebDriver interactions. The next interaction that we will be reusing is one called click, because we want to click on, and here we simply say type form. So we get our form again, and we get the buy tickets. And here is, in a nutshell, the operations the actor has to do to view a new ticket. Enter the value from, enter a value to, and then click on buy tickets. Now let's run this and see if it works. So that worked. The last part of this test is to implement the assertion that check that Tracy sees the correct departure and destination stations. We could do this by using the method that we've seen before. Tracy should see that. And what we're really interested in here is the outbound journey. So let's create an object called the outbound journey summary, and we want to talk about the origin, the source station. Make sure that is equal to London Paddington, but also we want to be able to see that the destination is Oxford. So we need Oxford to go here, but we also need, rather than an origin, we need a destination. Let's automatically input these methods, and what we need to do now is the outbound journey summary, which will be a question class. So let's call it trains questions. And now this is a class that returns questions. So the first question is a question about string values. It will return a string. And if we're doing it in Java 8, we can do something like this. Return a method that says the actor, and we can use one of the Serenity questions, which we'll be learning about in more detail in the next episode, but I'll just show you an example. We can say the text value of some target. So let's call it outbound journey summary origin. We're using the same principle, same general approach as the previous example where we were doing the tasks. So the outbound journey summary origin, what is the origin? So this is going to be a constant, and it's going to be something like now let's have a look at the page and see what these actually are. So Oxford, London Bridge. I want to make sure that these two fields are correct. So I'm going to inspect them. I'm going to find I've got a plan ahead origin, which will probably do the trick. And I've also got a plan ahead destination as well. Located by, we can just say, except it's a class, I believe, and it is indeed a class, so we can just say by plan ahead origin. And we can say something similar. Make a compile. Destination, and that would be the destination. And we're not finished here. We're back to the actor. The actor needs to return a value. So we say the text of the outbound journey, but we need to know who is looking at this text. So we say viewed by actor. So the actor is going to be looking through a browser, and that's where we get the browser from. And then we need to know what type to cast it to, what type to return. In this case, it's a string question, so we return a string. And we can do something very, very similar for the destination. We can say that the actor returns the text value of the destination as viewed by the actor as string. Now this, in a nutshell, is how we query our pages in Serenity Screenplay. We have a question method, a question which returns a particular type, and within that implementation we use some of the Serenity classes to query the web page, and we'll see lots of more ways of querying the web page just like this. And now we have a passing test. There's just one more thing we need to do. I'm going to open the target report, the report directory in target site Serenity. And if we look at the reports, we notice a couple of things that are a little bit strange. For one thing, it's all flat, which means that Serenity hasn't picked up on the groupings, on the task groupings which we'd expect. And for another thing, we've got these funny lambda symbols in our questions, which means that because we're doing lambdas in our question declarations, we need to do something a little bit cleverer to make the reporting appear nicely. Let's address those two issues before we wrap up. Let's fix the lambdas first. As we saw here, this outbound journey summary is a lambda, a Java 8 lambda expression. Normally, Serenity looks at the name of the class, or you can use a subject annotation, again, which we'll look at in a future episode, to define the question the way you want it to appear in the reports. But you can't do either with a lambda. You can't put an annotation on a lambda because it's dynamic, and you can't get it. You can't guess it from the class name because it's a generated class name. So what we have to do is put a text here to describe what the report actually should say. So we say something like the departure station, and likewise the destination station. And that's what will appear in the reports. The other thing we need to do is to configure our steps, our tasks, to act as Serenity steps and to appear in the report. So we do this by adding the step annotation and by providing a short description of what is actually going on. And we can use the name of the actor. So we say the actor, it'll be Tracy, views, available tickets from, and here we can use a hash to define the variables from, to, and to. And we had another one in the navigate when we had chosen to. We need to do something similar here. Step. We can say that Tracy has chosen to buy some tickets. And navigate is one of ours, so we'll do something similar. So Tracy navigates to, and we will say the main menu option. And if we run these tests again, we will get a much nicer report. And here we can see the report that's generated in our new version. We have Tracy has chosen to buy tickets. She navigates to buy tickets and she opens the buy tickets page. She views the available tickets and she enters London Paddington and so forth. Then the departure station should be Paddington. The destination station should be Oxford. And there we have it. So now we've had a fairly detailed practical tour of how Serenity Screenplay works with web tests. In the next section, we'll be going back and having a look at the theory behind all of this. So until then, it's John Smart signing out.